Hi, everyone. I'm going to play an excerpt from a webinar I did earlier today where I showcase all the new features we added to QuickBooks Online, specifically in the reporting area, simply by just adding a free Chrome extension called Write Tool for QuickBooks Online. It's pretty simple. If you're using Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, you're going to go into the URL. I'll put it in the description, and you click right here where it says Add to Chrome, and you click Add, and then OK, and then you go back into QuickBooks Online, hit refresh, and you immediately are going to see on the right-hand side the Write toolbar letting you know that we just installed the Write tool. And then when you go into reports, you're going to have access to all the features that we are showcasing in this webinar. So go ahead and download the free app so you can start experiencing what it looks like to work with QuickBooks Online with much, much better reporting tools. Enjoy. I'm going to turn on all the classic reporting features. And let's start with a couple of them. So let's go and pull up a profit and loss report. Example, we'll start with something very simple. I'm looking at reports here. Sometimes I just want to export this into a CSV or to the clipboard, not to Excel, because Excel is, for lack of a better term, the way the QuickBooks people design this Excel export is just so dumb, so not friendly. Number one, they added this one column here that drives me freaking insane. This one cell that's concatenated with multiple cells. Usually it causes tons of issues. And also sometimes the headers, I don't want, for XYZ reason, I don't want the headers. So we just made it simple and give you the, look, if you want to copy and paste this to the clipboard, you could just do that. That way you don't have to open an actual file and then come into your trusty Excel file here. And then we paste into that, right? And then because it's a CSV, so I can just do, I think I would say 99% of people know about text to columns. So like I'm not terribly.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's true. Not terribly worried about that. But you do a text to column split, and I'll separate it, and I'll get rid of the headers. So that's specifically with copy and paste. And the reason why I did copy and paste is because I was doing a lot of ChatGPT stuff, copy and pasting from ChatGPT. So I actually asked Mark for that. But if you just do export to CSV and you open it, then you don't have to worry about text to columns. It just comes in already clean. And then if you go back into the settings, you have an option to exclude the headers on reports. Is, let's say, for example, I have a P&L by class. Okay, by customer or by class. One of the things that drives people crazy is that you can't collapse subclasses. So you'll have this parent class 1, for example, which is like one of the classes itself, and then I have a subclass 1 and 2, and then I have a total. So it's just too much information being shown. So we have this little button here that says subcolumns. So when you click on that, it turns the parent class red to let you know that we mucked with it, we did something with it, but it hides all the subclasses in this specific case. Okay, so that's number one, and that was a big thing for nonprofits. So when you click on it again, it expands it, and then we have close parent columns. This is different. This, instead of hiding the subclasses, it hides all the totals, right? So it only shows subs of subs. That way, if you were to export this into Excel and do an actual sum across the entire line, actually not export to Excel, export to CSV. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the export to Excel is going to default to the original report, but you export to CSV, which will export the actual things you're seeing, and you sum across. It will actually sum across. It won't have those subtotals there messing you up. And also, if you have anything that has zeros, you can click on net zeros, and it gets rid of any ones that are just zeros, that are basically a waste of space. So like those are all the tools that we added on columns and subcolumns. So the other thing we added is we added this thing called sub rows. So what happens is sometimes you want to close these things manually, and it just takes forever to like close these things manually. So we just have a button here that says sub rows, and it'll close all the sub rows for you. And if you click it one more time, it will collapse one more time. And if you expand it, it will expand them all. And that's different than the collapse button, because if you click on the collapse button, it will collapse all the accounts, but it won't let you reopen any of the accounts. So if you're in expanded mode, then you can use sub rows and you have complete control over like how many layers of sub rows do you want to be closing. So that's this feature called sub rows and sub columns. Then we have default print reports to landscape. That's self-explanatory here, but when you go and you go print, it starts in landscape instead of starting in portrait. That was, I think, one of the users asked for that feature, and I probably simple enough to do that Mark just added that. Then we have the auto switch to classic view. That was already on the free edition, which is if the modernized view opens, it automatically closes. And lastly, the big boy here, which is the report presets button. Okay, so this is pretty good. So for example, let's say I always want the negative reds to show, and I also want to close non-zero, and I always want everything to be descending, and I always want everything split up by months, and I always want cash basis, and I always want to show rolling 12 months, for example, and I always want to put on the printable note on audited, something like that. And I always want it to be collapsed. And if it's a P&L or a balance sheet, I always want it to show either previous period dollar change or previous period dollar percentage change. So assuming that that's what I always do when I run reports, essentially you turn that on the reports preset. And then when you run a P&L, like right now, I just ran a regular, let me just do this from scratch. So I go into reports, I go to P&L, and the P&L shows up how QBO shows up the P&L. And instead of me having to go in here and change this to months and change this to non-zero and change this to the comparative and change this to cash and collapse, like instead of me like having to click all these things, we just click once in this button called Run Presets. And it does all the presets for me. Everything I told it to do it on the preset, it does it for me automatically. This is going to save you tons of time when running reports, especially when you're almost always doing the same type of settings when you run your reports. So it's a single button called Run Presets. All of these things were previously available in the Pro Edition, now available in the Pre Edition, our gift to our free users. And there's a reason why we do that. Our free users are just as important as our Pro users for two reasons. One, once you get your feet wet with free, you're likely to go to Pro, or at least to show up in the Facebook group and give good suggestions and feedback. And two, we run ads, and companies pay us to run ads. We're not making that much money in ads yet, but in order to support the free version of it, we will have ads. So you're going to see all sorts of different apps run ads inside Right Tools. So support them.